The Steelers, like every NFL team, have been busy with draft prep this offseason. Going from the combine to pro days, now they have the top 30 visits. And with all these events starting to come to a close, we are seeing some trends with how Omar Khan and company are spending their time. And with that, what hints are being dropped about who the Steelers could potentially pick at the end of April in the draft? We'll discuss further. Big Deke News. So here are the Steelers' top 30 visits thus far. Shout out to Steelers Depot and Alex Kozora for constructing this list. Quarterback out of Houston, Clayton Tune. Wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Jonathan Mingo. Purdue receiver, Charlie Jones. Michigan State receiver, Jaden Reed. Offensive tackle out of Ohio State, DeJuan Jones. Offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Anton Harrison. Florida guard, Osiris Torrance. TCU guard, Steve Avila. NC State guard, Chandler Zavala. Minnesota center, John Michael Schmitz. North Dakota State offensive lineman, Cody Mauch. Florida defensive lineman, Gervin Dexter. Baylor defensive lineman, Siaki Ika. Georgia Tech defensive lineman, Keon White. Wisconsin defensive lineman, Keanu Benton. USC edge rusher, Tui Peloto. Georgia cornerback, Kelee Ringo. Mississippi State corner, Emmanuel Forbes. Miami cornerback, Tyreek Stevenson. Kansas State corner, Julius Brents. Penn State corner, Joey Porter Jr. Maryland corner, Deontay Banks. South Carolina corner, Darius Rush. Oregon corner, Christian Gonzalez. And safety out of California, Daniel Scott. And finally, safety out of NC State, Tanner Engel. And for those of you that may be wondering what exactly a top 30 visit is or what it means, well, here's what Google had to say. Teams have their top 30 visits where they can bring up to 30 players to their facility for interviews, meetings, and a physical, all with the goal of getting to know the players more in depth. These visits can be the difference between a team selecting a player or passing them by. So I'll talk about some of the interesting aspects I found about this list as it compares to also the Steelers Combine meetings and what they did at Pro Days. But first, I want to focus on one specific player that sticks out, and that is Georgia corner Kelee Ringo. And the reasoning is just due to how much attention the Steelers have paid to him throughout this whole draft process. And if you're not familiar, Ringo was pretty much everyone's CB1 out of this 2022 draft class. Early in this college football season, he's coming off of a freshman year where he was the top corner on the best defense and showcased crazy athletic traits, but his stock started to plummet a little this year as he gave up a decent amount of yards in coverage and sometimes looked stiff against better route runners. His crazy good 40 time may have bumped up his stock a little bit recently, and I don't really think there's a doubt he's still worth at least a second round pick because he is a good football player. There's just a lot of question marks about how he fits in the NFL. Is he just going to be primarily a zone corner? Can he play man in the next level? Should he transition to safety? But none of that has stopped the Steelers from showing interest, as Ringo has literally hit every check mark of this pre-draft process. Combine meeting, check. Sending Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan to the Georgia Pro Day, check. Private dinner, check. Now, a top 30 visit, check. This obviously makes me think that the Steelers are interested in Ringo. I think I'd be stupid not to think that. Now, there could be some smoke screens being thrown up, but I don't think it makes sense for the Steelers to allocate all this time and resources into a guy if you're not actually thinking about drafting them. How do I feel about it? Not the most amazing. Ringo is interesting. If we actually do draft him, I don't know what my reaction would be. His pluses are his athleticism, his physicality, his size, and his age, being only 20 years old when he's going to get drafted. But then his minuses, in my opinion, are kind of important when it comes to the cornerback position, and that's his fluidity and movement. I feel like those are key components to that job. But with all that being said, I do wonder, I'm trying to connect some dots here. Stick with me. Kelee Ringo has been compared to another former SEC cornerback. His name, Patrick Peterson. What corner just so happens to be on the Steelers right now? That is Patrick Peterson. Could the Steelers also be seeing these similarities and recalling Patrick Peterson coming out of LSU and say, hey, Kelee Ringo fits that prototype? So we've already seen it work in the NFL. Peterson is going to be a Hall of Fame cornerback. Now he's on the roster under contract for 2 years. Maybe if we draft Ringo, Peterson would be up for coaching the 2.0 version of himself. So it appears the signs of Ringo becoming a Steeler are there. It doesn't guarantee that he's going to be drafted. The Steelers are looking at a lot of cornerbacks, as you can see from this top 30 visit list. But again, Ringo has hit every check mark of the pre-draft process, and the comparisons to Peterson are somewhat legit. I'm not going to go all the way there because Peterson was a much more polished prospect. I think he was more can't miss, went top 10. Whereas, yes, there are legitimate question marks around Ringo. That's why he's being talked about as a late first rounder, a guy that's going to drop out of the first, being potentially a second-round pick. So again, I don't know exactly how I'd feel if Ringo becomes a Steeler. I think it depends on a lot of factors, like one, where he's drafted. If he's the second pick in the second round, I'm definitely more okay with that as opposed to him being picked at 17 or 32. I also would wonder what type of vision the Steelers have for him. Like, where would he fit on this roster right now? Where would he fit long-term? Do you think he will be the CB1? Because right now, I don't know if I get those vibes. I think there's just more polished cornerback prospects out there. I could see the upside in Ringo, but I don't know if that upside is exactly going to translate to the cornerback position, or at least being a lockdown man-to-man corner. So very intriguing, to say the least. Let me know what you guys think about the prospect of the Steelers drafting Kelee Ringo. But before I sign off, let me go over some of the other things I found interesting about this top 30 visits list. The first one is the guards. We're looking at a decent amount of guards, considering we signed a bunch of dudes this offseason and basically have 4 starters on the roster. I don't know why I don't want to say wasting, but we're allocating 1, 2, 3, and then 4. We're allocating 4 scheduled visits to interior offensive linemen. I don't know if that's exactly something we need to be doing. But also the receivers. The reason I bring this up is they visited with Jonathan Mingo, Charlie Jones, and Reed on these top 30 visits, as opposed to some of the guys they met with at the Combine, like Jordan Addison, Jalen Hyatt, Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, also Parker Washington. Those guys at the Combine considered, 4 or 5 of the best receiver prospects. Whereas these guys, I don't know, they're probably going to go like 3rd or 4th round. So I wonder if the Steelers are tipping their hand at all and saying like, hey, we're cool on waiting for a receiver. If the board goes that way, we could take someone in the 3rd or 4th and feel good about it. We don't have a pressing need to take one early. Or you could flip it and say the Steelers saw everything they needed to see from the top prospects. They don't need to spend any more time with them. Who knows? I mean, it's just that point in this whole draft process that it's time for the draft. We're like, 3 weeks away? You could go over every situation, possibility, combination of what the team's going to do. And it could all make sense right now. You could talk yourself into anything. You could outthink yourself. It's just time for the NFL draft. But that's it for this edition of Big Deke News on a Thursday. No episode tomorrow. I'm going to be at the Buccos home opener, 4-2. Let's keep the good times rolling. But let me know what you guys think about the possibility of Kelee Ringo coming to Pittsburgh. How do you feel about that? And also, any thoughts on these other top 30 visits, or just any interest the Steelers have shown in various draft prospects. That's it. Again, hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling, and peace.